اللهم انصر إخواننا في فلسطين اللهم أصلح أهل فلسطين اللهم فرج عن أهل فلسطين اللهم ارحم أهل فلسطين اللهم ارحم أهل فلسطين اللهم ارحم أهل فلسطين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. First of all, Jazakallahu khairan, Dr. Fareeha, for your words. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and protect you, protect your family. All that which is beneficial, may it be heavy in Mizan Hasanat. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive everyone here and have mercy upon us all, divine love and compassion based upon this being a Majlis al-Dhikr, in which the angels surround us right now. We have full faith in that, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept us as being a part of this Majlis. So I'm going to try to be brief. I know some of you have maybe some comments as well as some questions. And I like discussing things in 5. So, inshallah, I'm going to touch on one theological point, something, 2 things relating to spirituality or ruhani matters, and 2 things relating to fiqh. So that's 5. Buni Islam al-Khams. Islam was established upon 5, and it's always good to give order things in odd numbers. 3 more concisely, but if we have to go a little further, 5. Just as a rule. The first thing is just a reminder to you and I about the reality of the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to remind ourselves and know that everything that takes place in this universe, that the divine decree does not escape it. In fact, the divine decree informs it. Nothing happens in this creation without Allah's full knowledge, without His mashiyah, without His permission, and of His ultimate wisdom as to why He allowed that to happen. And for the believers, everything that happens of an ibtila, of a trial, is designed to raise the maqamat, or the spiritual stations of the believers. And for those who have disobeyed or are in disbelief, those then become bala and become a source of earthly punishment. And for those souls who still have some light in them, that it can be a means for those people to turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to repent, to accept faith, and serves as a purification. But know that what's going on right now, including in Gaza and in Palestine in general, Allah is fully aware of it, and He is allowing it to happen, and know that there is some khair, there's some benefit in it for the believers. Even if we don't see it right now, we must believe this, and this is one of our articles of faith in believing the qadr of Allah in the khair and the shar. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَالٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. And also understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told His Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and that your Lord does not do wrong or oppress any of His slaves. And of the subtlety of this, He didn't say al-ibad. He says al-abid, lil-abid, right? Ibad al-Rahman are those who believe and strive to serve ar-Rahman. Al-abid, lil-abid relates to the believer and the disbeliever and the hypocrite. It relates to all 3, because one is either mu'min, kafir, or munafiq. There's nothing outside of the spiritual reality. And the munafiq is a kafir. Right? So these are the 3 realities of the states of the people. Right? So this is number 1. We have to remember this in these times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. Right? And the problem comes for us, for some of this hopelessness we have, is when we actually falsely believe that we are the ultimate determiners of outcomes. We are not. We are not the ultimate determiners of outcomes. Inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. Surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all powerful, meaning He is in control of the qadr and the ultimate determiner of all final outcomes, not us. Remember that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told this, Ibn Abbas anhuma, that if the entire world came to harm you, amongst the people, came to harm you, and that Allah does not wish for it to harm you, there would be no harm to come to you. But if all of the people, all of the world was with you, and it was decreed the harm to come to you, all the people could not stop that harm coming to you. This is number one, theological point. Number two, we're talking about the pain of seeing. In the hadith, the sahih, narrated by, on the authority of Nu'man ibn Bashir al-Anwan, fi Sahih al-Bukhari. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ترى مؤمنين في ترحمهم وتوديئهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد إذا اشتكى عضوا تداعى له بجسده بالسحر والحمى. We all have heard this. Dr. Fareeha kind of made reference to this, but the wording is very important. We're talking about the pain of seeing. He says, and have you seen the believers? Have you seen the believers? In showing their mutual mercy, their mutual love, so it's mutual rahmah, mutual mawadda, and mutual empathy, mutual ta'atif, mutual empathy. The believers, you see these believers, they are like a single body. And when part of the body is ill or not well, the whole body shares in the sleeplessness or insomnia and the fever, right? So, not just seeing with these physical eyes, but seeing with the eyes of the heart. That when we know of believers anywhere in the world, doesn't matter if it's in Palestine, in Sudan, in Kashmir, India, Burma, China, wherever, a sign of us having Iman and a weak heart is that it does bother us. Right? We should want to be aware of the affairs of the ummah in its entirety. And it should make us uncomfortable when we see babies having their heads blown off. One of my colleagues in California, Sacramento, I was there about 2 weeks ago. I was giving Khutbah al-Jum'ah doing a workshop. And he was at the Thursday night Dars. I didn't see him for Salat al-Jum'ah. I saw him later that night at a Sira and Salawat program. Actually, maybe it was 3 weeks ago. It was at the very end of Rabi'ul Awwal. And he said, sorry, Sheikh, I had a family issue. I wasn't able to see you for Salat al-Jum'ah. And I said, there's no problem. Mish mushkila. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, because he's Palestinian. He said, I lost 15 family members a day during Yom al-Jum'ah. And then I came and gave him a hug. He turned like a spaghetti noodle in my arms. Wow. 15. We know some people who lost 40 family members in one day. I'm not talking about people on TV, people that we know personally. Right, so that should bother us. So it's that to say the feelings that you feel right now is a sign that you have a living heart. You have a living heart. Now there's ways of dealing with this, and Dr. Fareeha was mentioning some of this, but we have to deal with this in a positive way. The third thing I want to touch upon is the first step on the spiritual path of fixing our problems according to the spiritual doctors. Because we have the sciences of the outward and the sciences of the inward. Right? And this is related to in Hadith Jibreel alayhi salam. that's narrated through 8 different Sahaba. Hadith mutawatir. Right? Hadith mutawatir means these hadith that are beyond doubt. It's not like hadith ahad. Like sometimes you can hear like a hadith ahad, like Dr. Fareeha mentioned a hadith previously. One of them is by a singular chain. So it is sahih in its sanad, but it's ahad. So some of the scholars say that hadith ahad doesn't necessarily pertain to a primary issue of aqidah or usul ad-din. It can be a secondary issue, but it's not a primary issue, right? Hadith mutawatir are beyond doubt. We must believe them. If we deny them, this is problematic and have us bordering on kufr. Hadith mutawatir, the Prophet ﷺ mentions in the tartib of Abu Hurairah, is mentioned was iman first. This mentions Mel iman mentions the absolute necessities we must believe in theologically to even be in the fold of Islam. Mel Islam, that talks about the 5 pillars. There's ahkam or rulings around these 4 pillars after the shahadatain. Right? So one is somewhat intellectual, you understand, bil aql, when naql, through intellect and transmission. The second is relates to the rulings that control our jarawih, our bodies, right, in outward worship and rules. And then mel ihsan, which Dr. Fareeha Hafidhullah Ta'ala mentioned, that you worship Allah as if you see Allah. If you not see Allah, then no, Allah sees you. This is the sciences of the inward, of akhlaq, spiritual purification, zuhud, inward directness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many times we focus on the first 2 and leave off the 3 in our community about how we talk about Islam. Tawbah is the first step. And the way that we fix our problems, our issues, is first we turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are different grades of tawbah. There are different, and she mentioned the word darajat. There are different levels of tawbah. For the awam, of the generality, in order to get nusra from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is tawbah from al-kabair, the major sins, as individuals. Now there's also tawbah that needs to be made not individually, but on a communal level. There are certain commands that Allah gives us that are singular regarding our ibadah and turn to Him, but in one particular ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about tawbah, communal tawbah. فَتُوبُوا إِلَى اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا أَيُّهَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ عَلَكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. All of you together turn to Allah. All of you together as a group make tawbah. O you who believe, O you believers, in order that you what? You shall gain success. Allahumma ij'alna minal muflihin. This is the first step towards communal success. This is the first step towards helping things in full esteem. Tawbah is the first step. Singularly and collectively. So it's tawbah for collective sin. And she mentioned the issue of fard kifaya. And I will get to that because there are such things as communal sins. What else do we have to make tawbah for besides our own individual sins? There's also tawbah relating to the states of our heart. And Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned this, who was a Sufi, by the way. He talked about ilmul zahir wa ilmul batin. There's the outward science and the inward science. In Fiqh al-Tasawwuf, he talks about this. His book, Fiqh al-Tasawwuf, hasn't been translated in English for some reason. So what do we make tawbah for the inward states? Number one, when we as a community and individuals, we doubt the promise or question the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we think we're going to use other means outside of firstly relying on the divine instructions and means. We have to make tawbah for that. That we think we can take another way of doing things as if we are questioning the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In yasumukum Allah fala ghaliba lakum. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and if Allah aids you, none can defeat you. Do we really believe that? Or do we place more hope in the protection of people? Firstly, we have to make tawbah. Do we say we believe in the Qur'an and the Sunnah? Do we believe in the Qur'an and Sunnah actually works? If we question that, we have to make tawbah. We have to make tawbah. Which leads to the third thing in Dr. Fareeha, may Allah preserve her. Say Ameen. She mentioned Fard Kifaya. And she also mentioned Fard Ayn. This is an issue in our Usul that is both Fard Kifaya and Fard Ayn. And this relates to our turning to Allah. Let me mention one other thing. There is the tawbah of sins. There's a tawbah of doubts. There's also general tawbah in that what we did, we continue to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to improve our actions because we did our actions, we're striving towards ihsan. So the scholars of the inward say that tawbah has a bidayah without a nihayah. Tawbah has a beginning without an ending. Our tawbah as individuals ends when Malakul Maut comes and takes our souls. So for the khawas, so I mentioned the awam, for the khawas, for the elite or the elect of this ummah, it's not that they're committing major sins or even having doubts with Allah, is that they are striving to improve that which they do in this dunya. It's sad. So the fourth is this Fard Kifaya and can be a Fard Ayn. Is al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. It is enjoining the good and forbidding evil. This is a Fard Kifaya and in circumstances also a Fard Ayn. So the Fard Kifaya is mentioned in the Quran. وَتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ بِالْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there be amongst you a group, and literally an ummah, that means ta'ifa, an organized group. So anytime you have a group, you have a leader, and there has to be nizam, there has to be organization. Right? So then as one leader. It can't be, as they say in America, we have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. No, there's one chief. There's one qa'id of one ta'ifa. Everyone can't be the leader. And we have a problem with that in our community. Everyone wants to lead everything. And we replicate a lot of things, and this causes us to be weak. Let there be amongst you a group that calls towards khair, goodness, meaning giving da'wah, enjoins good, which is proactive, forbids evil, which is reactive. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And these will be the successful people. So the first step of the muflihin is tawbah. The next step is da'wah, being proactive in enjoining good in society, reacting and prohibiting the evil. And these are the people also who shall gain success. This is talking about communal success, not individuals. This is Fard Kifaya. So we have organizations and different people doing things in our community in regards to this issue and other issues. And those are the ones who should be supported, those who we have the communal trust, who are operating under the guidelines of the Qur'an, al-Nabawiyyah, and the methodology of the people of the Sunnah. Right? The methodology of the people of the Sunnah. In the first, in da'wah, and this is just in general, but relates to this, right? We have to change a heart set. I don't like to use the word mindset. It's a heart set, right? Heart set. And actually, our scholars say that aql is something that emanates from the qalb. It's not something that emanates from damagh, or it just simply emanates, like how the Greek philosopher says that intellect emanates from the brain. So it's separated from spiritual essence. When we say no, intellect is connected to spiritual essence, Islamically. It's different from Greek philosophy. In da'wah, the shift of the mindset is, instead of us seeking to be accepted by everyone else, we should be inviting them to accept who we are and what we believe. It's a different heart set. Instead of wanting to be on everyone else's umbrella and please accept us, we do it not in an arrogant way, but we believe that we are the ones that Allah gave hidayah to. We are kuntum khairu ummatin ukhrijat linnas. We are the best nation brought for mankind. So instead of trying to follow everyone else down the lizard hole to be accepted by them, we should be inviting them to our way, because our way is a path of salvation in this life and the next. Then we enjoin good and forbid evil, right? But the first is always the call to Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Sahaba always were about da'wah first. After the first 3 years of Islam being secret, once they came out those 3 years, Quraysh was called to Islam. They were persecuted. 2 groups of Sahaba went to Habasha, Christian Abyssinia. They gave da'wah as a minority who were refugees, to the extent that Najashi, the emperor, his son Abu Nizar, and his nephew Dhul Mikhbar became Muslims. And a number of rabbis and priests became Muslims in Ethiopia. After the year of grief, the Prophet ﷺ went to Ta'if. Before he sought for protection, he asked them to accept Islam. When he first migrated to Medina, he gave them da'wah and invited them to accept Islam. When he got political power and he wrote all the heads of state, he first started off Aslam Taslim. Submit to Islam and obtain peace. Aslam Taslim. His whole prophetic career was da'wah. Da'wah as politically weakened, da'wah as oppressed, da'wah as having political power. Da'wah. Then enjoining good and forbidding evil. This becomes a fardun ayn, however, on all of us who are mukallifin and mukallifat. There are times when enjoining good and forbidding evil, but there's different gradations. The proof of this hadith sahih, Rawahu Muslim, and Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radwan. If any of you sees a munkar, you change it biyadi, with your hand. If you have the authority, the capacity. If you can't, then resist it bilisani. You speak out against it. And if you can't, resist it biqalbihi wa dhalika adaful iman. Resist it in your heart, that's the weakest of faith. And Hudhayfa ibn Yaman radwan, he went further. He was asked a question by a tabi. Ma Mayatul Ahya. What is a zombie? What's a zombie? Literally, it means the dead amongst the living. What's a zombie? Hudhayfa says, when a person sees the munkar and doesn't recognize it as munkar, they don't feel even bad about the munkar. This person is spiritually dead. They have a physically beating heart, but their spiritual heart is dead. This is a zombie. May Allah make us not be amongst zombies. So the fardun ayn. We have the first, obviously, everyone in their household and parents have to enjoin good and forbid evil with their family and their children. Isn't that right? This is the basic fardun ayn, that all mukallifin, mukallifat, meaning those who are adults who have reached over the age of puberty, who have responsibility. Mas'uliyah is the word in Arabic. Mas'uliyah. Then the second is the ulama and the du'at have the primary responsibility of enjoying good and forbidding evil to an extent that the awam don't. But the scholars and those who are the imams and preachers have the obligation to enjoin the good and forbid the evil on all social matters. So we can't say, oh, imams don't put out navigating differences thing because this makes our political alliances look bad. No, the scholars have to clarify the halal and haram and the mustahab or the mamdud and the makruh. The scholars must elaborate with this amongst the Muslims. Was pleasing to Allah, was displeasing, according to the sacred law. That's non-negotiable for the ulama and for the a'imma and the shuyukh. On the individual level, everyone doesn't have to be out at the rally or the protest. Everyone doesn't have to be posting things on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. There's not a religious obligation for everyone, right? If you share certain things, that could alter the algorithm where more people who aren't Muslim could then see some of the messages. And meanwhile, protect your hearts. It's not good to look at a bunch of, we need to be aware of what's going on, but we have to protect our hearts. Like, we don't want to look at things that become overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Not violent, but
graphic.
Yeah, graphic, thank you. Because that can do something to us. That can affect our hearts in a very negative way if we continue to look at those images. But there are times when we are in our workspaces where we may have to enjoin good and forbid evil. And I don't mean simply I don't mean social media posts. Let's say you're at your workplace and you have a supervisory position and there's some organization that's trying to come to give a training right now about anti-Semitism. And you know they're Islamic phobic. And you have the capacity or the capability to say this, like for instance, the ADL, which is a very problematic organization. If you have a position of authority or influence within your corporation for a man or a woman, you have then the Fardan Ayn to enjoin the good and forbid the evil in that circumstance. Right? Because Allah has granted you the capacity and the inroad to do it. Right? So it's not as if you're like a very entry-level junior person, but if you have a level of influence, so you're like a supervisor and you see it's being pushed, you say the ADL is problematic for X, Y, Z. Have them call CAIR-Michigan instead. I'm just saying. And then they'll say CAIR-Michigan's problematic. But anyway, we have to do that, right? When we're talking about diversity and training things, or when they're talking about anti-Semitism, or if they're talking about what's going on right now, then you should also say, well, remember Palestinian lives too. It just can't be that the only lives that are humanized are Israeli lives. Palestinian lives matter too, right? So you have that. That's number 4. The fifth thing, and I will conclude with this, and this may be some more for the younger people. And this is the issue of the fiqh of al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, is partnering with who we call or so-called allies. I just heard something yesterday where there was this Palestinian activist who was at a march or a rally and said, not verbatim, but something on the lines about Palestine can't be free until queer people are free. No, Palestinians cannot be free until queer people are free, because these are part of the talking points. There's a sign someone sent me about a week and a half ago in the Bay Area where it says reproductive rights means Palestinian freedom. So sometimes we invite people to our rallies and actually give them the microphone, right? In the name of we thinking that if we have more numbers, that this helps our cause. If people are sincere about helping Palestine on their own, let them come. But we're the ones who set the platform. They have to work within our guidelines. We're the ones who have security and police, the signs, and who's saying what. but it should not be a proactive thing that we get so obsessed with getting some sort of support that what we do unknowingly is that we begin to put more faith in the asbab than the Rabb of the asbab. Asbab in Arabic means means. We put more faith in material means or material numbers than the Lord who controls the means and the people. We do it, right? We do it sometimes unknowingly. So we overly rely on the asbab. So we have to be very clear and very careful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits unconditional quid pro quo in the Quran. Just because some people come to scratch our back doesn't mean we have to be in so-called solidarity with them on every issue and scratch their back. He commands in the ayah for the believers, which is a principle we relate to non-Muslims with as well, or people of other faiths, I should say. وَتَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Very important. Two commands in this ayah. Cooperate with each other based upon al-birr. Al-birr is in Arabic called kalima jamia. It's a very comprehensive word. And the Prophet ﷺ in hadith, fi Sahih al-Bukhari wa Muslim, he said, alaykum bi-sidq, in as-sidqa yahdi ila-birri wa in al-birra yahdi ila-jannah. You are obligated to be truthful, and truth guides to al-birr, and al-birr guides to paradise. So, the truth is the fountain. This is, mashallah, may Allah bless Sheikh Ali. Sheikh Ali is the one who pointed out this subtlety to me in Arabic. That the foundation of all noble traits of outward righteousness, the foundation of that is truthfulness. Truthfulness in intentions, truthfulness in speech, and truthfulness in actions. So as-sidq is the foundation of al-birr. So Allah says cooperate with each other based upon righteousness that's based in the truth and God consciousness. But do not cooperate with people based upon the opposite. So al-ithm is the linguistic opposite of al-birr, which is false, which is immoral, and what is haram. Don't cooperate with people based upon haram. Don't celebrate haram. Don't give an avenue to haram. And also, udwan is the linguistic opposite in this ayah of taqwa. And do not cooperate with people based upon that which takes people away from respecting God or God consciousness. Don't cooperate with people based upon that. So this is the framework of what we deal with in coalitions, right? We work with people on what we can work with them on. But number one, we don't give them a platform to do al-amr bil munkar, number one, to promote haram and falsehood. And number two, we don't get underneath their umbrella to celebrate munkar. So in the name of liberating Philistine, we shouldn't be out trying to make that equal with abortion with no restrictions, or celebrating pansexualism or non-gender conformity, or in the name of celebration or the advocacy of the legalization of recreational drugs in the name of intersectionality, right? Because Muslims are doing that right now. This protest on Washington, I'll conclude with this for Q&A. I listened to the first 40 minutes of the big march on DC, the rally. I heard about the first 6 or 7 speakers. Not a single one of these Muslims mentioned Allah a single time. Not even Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, not Subhanallah, not Astaghfirullah, much less an ayah or hadith. We're not going to liberate and get justice for Palestinian people as Muslims like that. We don't even mention Allah. That Allah is not. Everything is about the organizing strategy and anti-imperialism rhetoric. Literally, that's what I heard. It's about it's neo-Marxist rhetoric. Marxism is not going to liberate Palestine. It's not. Right? Or neo-Marxism. Or postmodernism. Foucault. Karl Marx. That's not going to liberate us. Right? Allah is the one who gives the nusra. And we get tawfiq by proper belief and following and relying on sacred means. That's where tawfiq comes. Tawfiq doesn't come from, and the saying is, al-kufru millatun wahida. Kufr is one worldview. No matter what name, you give it, it's all one way. It's kufr, right? So with that, I conclude, and please forgive your needy brother if I said anything in a way that maybe was a little too coarse or a little too harsh, because I know I can come off like that sometime. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam.